Ladies and gentlemen, it's finally happening. Right at this very moment, California's Democratic leadership structure is quite literally imploding. And on top of that, as the party implodes, California's top Democratic leaders are turning on each other. It's every man for himself. Or I guess in California's case, it's every single LGBTQIA plus person for themselves. But anyway, today we have a lot to talk about, so hey, we should just jump right into things. So first off, take a look at this. Remember LA City Mayor Karen Bass and LA City's lesbian fire chief Crowley? Well, in the wake of the Palisades fires that their incompetence caused, by the way, they've completely turned on one another. In fact, take a look at what Fire Chief Crowley had to say just the other day.
Did the city of Los Angeles fail you and your department and our city?
It's my job to stand up as a chief and exactly say justifiably what the fire department needs to operate to meet the demands of the community.
Did they fail you?
That is our job, and I tell you, that's why I'm here. So let's get us what we need so our firefighters can do their jobs.
Did they fail you?
Yes.
You hear that? It was actually the city of Los Angeles that failed her. That's why the fires broke out. It wasn't her fault at all. Well, as you can imagine, LA City Mayor Karen Bass wasn't too happy about that. Take a look at this.
Acting in the best interest of Los Angeles public safety and for the operations of the Los Angeles Fire Department, I just met with Chief Crowley and removed her as fire chief.
That's right. Just yesterday, LA City Mayor Karen Bass fired Fire Chief Crowley. So what that means is that in an almost comical twist of events, not only did Fire Chief Crowley fail to stop the Palisades fires, but she also failed to stop her own firing. What can you say? Sometimes fate gets the last laugh. But now, and I think you guys will like this next story, right at this very moment, California's Governor Gavin Newsom is also in the hot seat. You see, just yesterday, President Trump's transportation secretary, a man named Sean Duffy, absolutely torched Newsom for California's $16 billion failed high-speed rail project. But before we take a look at that, I want to say real quick that if you guys enjoy the daily news coverage here on the channel, please consider subscribing because it really does help a ton with my daily struggle against the YouTube algorithm. But okay, as a quick introduction here, take a look at what Governor Gavin Newsom had to say about this high-speed rail project back in 2010.
I am sick and tired of hearing about how wonderful the transportation system is in France and Japan, and have you been to Shanghai, or do you know what they're doing in Beijing? Well, finally, California is going to get it right with this new high-speed rail.
Okay, so folks, I have a little bit of a spoiler here for all of you. 15 years have passed, and California has, in fact, not gotten it right with this high-speed rail project. In reality, it's actually been a complete and total waste of taxpayer money. So now, take a look at what Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said just the other day to a bunch of pissed-off progressive politicians about this very project.
I want to address the protesters for a moment, if I could. I think they were chanting, "Build the rail." It's been 17 years and $16 billion. And no rail has been built. So if you want to go protest somewhere, if you want to shout at someone, go to the governor's mansion. Go talk to Democrats in the legislature who have brought us this crappy project, right? So we've seen over the course of the last month what DOJ has exposed with regard to fraud, waste, and abuse. And we're done with it. And you know what? You're going to have people who love fraud, who love waste, who love trains to nowhere. But all of us up here, we do not love fraud, waste, and abuse. We are going to use the taxpayer money efficiently and effectively, and this is a boondoggle.
Folks, I don't know if you realize it, but what we just watched is an absolutely perfect representation of where we are as a country right this very moment. And what I mean by that is this. Right now, common sense conservatives across the country are trying to get this country back on track, and guess what? Every single step of the way, the radical progressives are melting down about it. And that is exactly what we just watched. But hey, guess what, folks? California's waste and fraud under Governor Gavin Newsom's leadership doesn't just end at the $16 billion failed rail project. No, you see, it gets a lot worse. In fact, take a look at one of Governor Gavin Newsom's plans that went into effect in January of 2024, just about a year ago.
California is poised to be, if this proposal is supported, the first state in the country to achieve universal access to health coverage. So what does that mean? It means full scope Medi-Cal, including long-term care, IHSS, behavioral health to all low-income Californians, regardless of immigration status, regardless of their age, regardless of their immigration status. Full implementation will initiate January 2024.
You hear that? Free everything for everybody, even illegal immigrants. But here's the problem. As you all know, when we're talking about free universal health care for illegal immigrants, guess who's really paying for it? That's right, the American taxpayer. And so, folks, this next video I really want you to watch. Because now that California's universal health care program for illegal immigrants has been in effect for a year, now we know just exactly how much it's costing. Spoiler, it's a lot. Take a look at this.
How much money are we spending in this year's budget on illegal immigrant services? Let's just start with healthcare. The number in the budget said an increase of $6.3 billion, but my numbers suggest that the number is far higher than that, that was added coverage from this last budget cycle. Do we have an actual number of illegal immigrant healthcare that the state taxpayers are covering in this year's budget?
In the current year, to cover undocumented individuals in Medi-Cal, we're spending $9.5 billion total funds.
So it's not the $6 billion that people continue to talk about in the media. It's $9.5 billion.
It was a Budget Act number. This is a revised number based on the governor's budget updated estimates. So of the $9.5 billion, $8.4 billion is general fund.
$8.4 billion in general funds. So that's, well, if we cut that, at least using your math, we'd have a $1 billion surplus, my friends. We wouldn't have to go into the rainy day fund. Gee, I mean, soon we can actually start getting a reserve. My colleague from Los Angeles mentions a moral budget, a morally balanced budget. I'd like to start with a balanced budget to get real numbers so we know exactly what we're dealing with. And then we can start asking the question, what are the priorities of California taxpayers? I don't think covering $9.5 billion of illegal immigrant health care in the general fund would be at the top of their list.
You hear that? Because of Governor Gavin Newsom's completely and totally incompetent leadership, last year tax-paying Californians paid $9.5 billion to cover the healthcare costs of illegal immigrants. Excuse my language, but how in the hell does anyone think that that is a good idea? And in reality, what all of this means is that not only is California a sanctuary state that is violating federal immigration law and protecting illegal immigrants from the Department of Justice, but also California's progressive leadership is quite literally stealing money from American tax-paying citizens and redistributing it to illegal immigrants. Folks, if this behavior isn't treasonous, I don't know what is. But you know what? Now, finally, we actually have an attorney general that isn't going to tolerate this sort of behavior. Take a look at this.
You've cracked down on sanctuary cities. The DOJ has put a pause on all federal funding to sanctuary cities and states. You filed a lawsuit against Chicago and the state of Illinois for being a sanctuary city. Am I wrong in my interpretation that a sanctuary city is aiding and abetting in lawbreaking?
Sean, what they're doing is they are choosing illegal aliens over the safety and security of their own citizens and the men and women of law enforcement who are out there trying to protect their citizens. Not only did we sue today the city of Chicago, we sued the state of Illinois, we sued the mayor, we sued the governor, and we sued others. And let me be very clear, if you don't comply with federal law, you're going to be next.
So hey, you hear that, folks? Now that President Trump is back in the White House, federal funding is being pulled for every single sanctuary state in the country, and all of these corrupt progressive politicians that are putting American lives at risk by harboring illegal immigrants are now going to have to deal with the Department of Justice. So okay, as a recap, what does all of this really mean? It means that now all of the Democrats' fraud, waste, and abuse is being discovered and rooted out, and it means that all of these deranged progressive politicians are going to be held accountable. And hey, between you and me, I think that's a good thing. But folks, you know what? I think that's going to be a wrap for this one. So please go down below in the comments and let me know what you think about all of this. Please like the video if you liked the video. Like I said earlier, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton. Thank you all very much for watching. And of course, as always, stay safe.